Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump's Department of Homeland Security has just absolutely cracked down. They are done messing around. You see, still to this very day, numerous groups of far-left radicals are attacking and ambushing groups of ICE officers across the country, and honestly, the problem has only been getting worse. These groups of far-left radicals are organized, prepared, and they want conflict. In fact, take a look at this footage coming out of Portland, Oregon from just last night.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Officers come right out. Here we go. Here we go, blast. Clear the area. Whoa.
And so, folks, scenes just like this have been continuing to play out across the entire country, but no one in the mainstream media is really talking about it because of all of the other drama that's been going on elsewhere in the world. And so, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, the Department of Homeland Security has had enough of this type of behavior, releasing a bombshell statement yesterday afternoon. But before we take a look at that, I do want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a lot. But okay, take a look at this. As the DHS said yesterday afternoon, last night, Portland rioters violently targeted federal law enforcement. 250 rioters launched fireworks, shined lasers in officers' eyes to temporarily blind them, and stormed an ICE field office. Ultimately, 5 individuals were arrested on various charges, including assault on federal law enforcement. We won't sit idly by and watch these cowards. Our officers are facing a 413% increase in assaults against them as they put their lives on the line to arrest the worst types of people. Secretary Noem's message to the rioters is clear: you will not stop us or slow us down. ICE and our federal law enforcement partners will continue to enforce the law. And if you lay a hand on a law enforcement officer, you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And so, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, President Trump's Department of Homeland Security is done playing around. But so, folks, here's a good question. Who are all of these people that are showing up to all of these anti-ICE riots? Well, take a look.
Antifa seems to show up no matter what the riot seems to be about. It could be St. George Floyd, it could be ICE, it could be freaking LGBTQ, it could be anything, and Antifa seems to show up. What do they want?
So the ideology is anarchist communism, and they're revolutionary. They are really wanting to see the destruction of America, the literal destruction, like regime change, which is why they support every enemy of the US, whether it be Hamas or Hezbollah, jihadist groups, or terrorist communist groups that have existed in prior decades. They support all of that. And they claim to be opposing things like fascism or racism. And that may be part of their ideology, but there are also a lot of other things in their ideology that make them very violent, very dangerous, and extreme.
You hear that, folks? They are extreme, and their primary goal is the complete and total destruction of the United States of America. And so this is why it's so massive that not only the Department of Homeland Security is cracking down on these people, but also the House GOP. Take a look.
Well, we came here to make sure that these brave men and women that serve in ICE, who are protecting our communities and upholding federal law, I want to make sure that they know that Republicans have their back. The president, Kristi Noem at Homeland Security, all the leadership, Tom Homan, we are all in this together, and we want them to know that even though assaults on ICE officers have risen by 413% just in this recent period, Democrats are leading that. Republicans are on the opposite side. We are for the rule of law and for law enforcement, and we are doing everything we can to support them.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. As it would seem, the entire Republican Party has effectively unified against all of these violent far-left radicals, and so now they've got another thing coming. And you know what? Thank God for that. Sanctuary city politicians have intentionally emboldened all of this lawlessness and anti-American behavior by harboring illegal aliens and by playing coverage for violent, far-left extremists. The truth is, ICE agents risk their lives every single day to apprehend and deport the worst people in our society, yet they face relentless attacks from violent left-wing extremists. And really, the Democrats' refusal to condemn the ongoing anti-ICE violence just further fuels all of the chaos in cities like Portland and Los Angeles. But so folks, as House Speaker Mike Johnson said just a moment ago, not only are the Democrats not supporting ICE, no, they're actually actively trying to make the situation even worse. Take a look.
I have heard enough in the last couple weeks about ICE agents and wearing masks that I think when we win the majority in the House, you're going to see enough Democrats make it a priority for ICE enforcement that they are no longer faceless. It looks too much like some 1800s bank robber or some KGB officer in Russia, pulling protesters off the streets. And that part, it really bothers people that that's how they're conducting it. And so show us your face is going to be a part of, I think, a democratic enforcement policy in the future.
And so folks, let's break all of this down. Rather than condemn the terroristic behavior of all of these violent far-left radicals, who are all wearing masks, by the way, the Democrats, like Congressional Representative Eric Swalwell, are instead entirely focused on demasking all of the ICE agents. And why are all of the ICE agents now wearing masks? Well, it's because these very same far-left radicals are actively trying to identify and harass all of the ICE agents. They're even posting their personal identification information on flyers all over downtown Portland. And so why do the Democrats want to demask all of the ICE agents? Well, it's because they actually want them to be identified and harassed by their beloved far-left radicals. Pretty much, all of these congressional Democrats are just as anti-American as all of the far-left radicals marching through the streets. All of them want the complete and total downfall of the United States. But so folks, this is why it's such a big deal that President Trump and his Department of Homeland Security are cracking down on this sort of behavior. Because folks, I'll tell you what, that is what it's going to take to finally make America great again. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, I do want to say real quick that we officially have a Morse News Twitter page as well as a Morse News Facebook page. So if you use either of those platforms, please go down below and drop a follow in order to get breaking news updates that relate to everything we talk about here in the YouTube videos. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there, and like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.